we can get started though. So welcome to the standing delegate call for this week. We have 4 items actually on the agenda. The bigger one, or the one that will probably take up the most time, is the delegate incentives discussion that Tecker requested some time to discuss on this call. So I asked him if it was okay to first do some of the quicker announcements first, and then we can dive into that discussion. So the first one I wanted to share with you folks today, if you didn't see it on the forum, there I added a post just suggesting a standing proposal review call. It is here, I'll share it in the chat if you haven't taken a look at it yet. It's essentially just suggesting like adding another bi-weekly call that's alternating with this call. So it's the same time, same day of the week, just so every other week it's these calls alternating. The reason I wanted to suggest this is, one, we had talked about it in the very, very beginning, like when governance launched a few months ago. And given the amount of proposals that we've seen come up already, and rather than scheduling an individual proposal review call for every proposal, it might make more sense to just have one call where proposal authors can come in and present and also answer questions. This post just kind of breaks down the reasoning in a little bit more detail. Who would facilitate it? You're looking at her. I would do this in the meantime, just to kind of get it started, and it's also something we can just try out and experiment with. If you have any thoughts or feedback on that idea, please drop them on that post itself. Otherwise, if there's no strong disagreement, I would actually start it next week, Tuesday. So I would just add it to the delegate calendar, so there would be no action on your end. It would just show up in the calendar if you follow it. So yeah, that was the first item I wanted to share really quickly. I don't know if anybody has questions or comments they want to share on this call. Otherwise, we can also just move along, and you guys can leave comments on the forum. Amazing. I'm seeing thumbs up and makes sense. Great. So
maybe a question. Sorry, maybe a question about the day. Like, can it be any other day, or like maybe we could vote on a day that most people prefer?
We absolutely could vote on a day that people would prefer otherwise. I just thought, just for like the ease of the pattern or the cadence, because people are familiar with these calls being on the Tuesdays at this time, we can totally do something different though. So I can add a poll to the call or to the thread, and then folks can kind of vote on it. Actually, if people wanted to go and like suggest days already in the thread, that would be super helpful, because then I can like create a poll based on those suggestions. But yeah, and this is again like it's for you guys, so it should be convenient and useful for you guys. It's always impossible to make it work for everyone, but we also of course will record these calls. And yeah, if it's also necessary, if we can't fit everybody into these calls, just like one thing I wanted to call out here too, like we don't have we can try this call, but if any proposal author at any time wants to host their own proposal review call, knock yourself out, set it up, let me know, and I can add it to the delegate call calendar. So this is just like a placeholder. So like we have something, and we know that this will be a time and place where proposal authors of active proposals, so on the forum, on chain, can present and discuss their proposals. But this is always like, it's up to you guys too, if you want to have other calls or host like specific calls for specific proposals. So great. Okay, so moving on to the next item. Actually, before we move on to the roadmap discussion, I wanted to quickly call out the resubmission of ZIP 1, which happened just yesterday. It is called now ZIP3 on chain at the moment. If you go to vote.zknation.io, this is the resubmission of the protocol defense proposal. There is the reasoning for why they resubmitted it is also on the forum. And it was also shared in the announcement discussions as well. But I wanted to call this out and make sure folks knew about this, and provide an opportunity for people to ask any questions that they might have. No one? Okay, great. Great. Yeah, just wanted to call that out. And if you have any questions, please feel free to respond on the forum post itself. Also, just an FYI, if you haven't seen it, or like if you didn't see this yet either, this the same will have to happen for ZIP 2. There was just a tooling error, unfortunately, discovered after the proposal had been submitted. But we also, to some extent, we're expecting maybe something like this possibly could happen. We are, after all, still in the validation stage of this governance system that just launched, and these are the very first ZIPs that are going through the proposal process. So we have learned, and we will adjust to avoid that happening again. So just wanted to call that out. Where was the question? Yeah, I don't see anybody in the waiting room right now. I'm not sure if Dennis is still in there. Otherwise, if you give me his email, I can try to invite him. But I don't actually.
It's Dennis from Lobbyfy. He's a guest in the call already.
Sorry?
Is it Dennis from Lobbyfy? Is it?
No, from Areta.
Okay.
Different Dennis. No. But yeah, if you wanna tell Dennis to try to rejoin, maybe I can catch him. Otherwise, just send his email and I can try to invite him directly. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, and then the other note of the discussion that we wanted to kind of open up on this call is more just like a call out and FYI of something that's coming that Rafa, Alicia, and I are working on. I know Rafa wanted to join, and if he joins, I'm sure he'll have a few more words to share about this point. But over the last few calls, actually, kind of a big topic, or like the main topic of discussion, is like roadmap and roadmap alignment with like the technical development side of ZKsync. And there he is. Hi, Dennis. Alex, the founder of Matter Labs, joined in one of the last calls and presented kind of his general thoughts in overview of what he thinks the roadmap will be for ZKsync through 2020, and answered some of your questions. There is a blog post that is in the works, as he mentioned during the call, that is in the final steps of being ready to publish. And as that is kind of being prepared to publish, Rafa and I have also started to try to think about how we can use that, and also just having a general assessment of the ecosystem at the moment, try to figure out what is like kind of needed for governance right now in order to help folks move forward. And one of those things is having like a prioritized list of kind of governance priorities for 2025 for the token assembly. We are drafting a GAP, which would essentially just be like a governance advisory proposal. That's what GAP stands for, as a reminder. That would then ratify this prioritized list. The first draft of this, we are hoping we'll build to get on the forum before the holidays, but we did want to just give you guys an update or a heads up that's something that's coming, because we know it's something that's been asked for since governance has launched. I know that the North Star, the governance North Star does exist, but we've gotten quite a bit of feedback that that's not quite enough, or that's not quite exactly what folks are needing in order to be able to effectively plan and attempt to contribute to the governance system. I feel, yeah, in the way that, or yeah, that kind of piece is still missing. So we are working on that. And we are really excited to engage in that discussion with all of you folks as well. Sorry, I just wanted to check if Rafa was here. Yeah, so just to kind of preview that, basically we wanted to just kind of do an FYI that's coming. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions on that right now. We can share maybe a little bit about it when Rafa's on the call, just so we have both of us here to help engage in that discussion. I just also don't want to hold up the discussion with Tecker that Tecker wanted to have today. So any just initial questions, thoughts about that?
Hey guys. Oh, sorry.
Hi, Rafa. Perfect timing, actually. I was just giving a little preview to the ZKsync Roadmap point and how we possibly can ratify these key priorities for 2025. I let the folks know that a gap is in draft, and that will be coming soon, hopefully. I was about to share the kind of 3 points.
Yeah. So so just something. Thank you everyone for joining. For those of you who might not have seen my face before, this is my face. Usually I go by a green man, but this is my face. So one of we received feedback around like clarifying kind of like the priorities. So something that we started drafting up, still a lot to do. But I really would love us to have kind of like a document similar to the North Star that says, here are the priorities. And kind of like right now I'm thinking about it in terms of kind of like layers. Like we've got core protocol development of like, stuff that needs to get built around interoperability. SSO just launched recently. So there's tech that needs to be built. There's ZK chains that need to launch so that we can actually create this vision of the Elastic Network. There's also like applications that we want to like support as a ZK nation, as everyone together, that really take advantage of ZKsync unique features like native account abstraction and privacy. So that's it for now. Don't worry about it too much. There will be more news, but just let you guys know we're working on it because we really think that getting clarity over the next year strategically is just such a high priority for everyone. So anyways, any questions you can send to me, but don't worry about it because it's still in development.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was it. Oh,
just before we move on to the delegate incentives discussion, is it possible to just hear from Dixon from Skylock, who's on the call, about the safe harbor gap, if just like for 2 minutes?
Dixon?
Oh yeah. Hey guys. I guess thank you so much for inviting me. Basically, I'm proposing this one, this gap right here. Basically, it's the proposal to adopt the safe harbor agreement. I guess the TLDR is basically right now there's a lot of hacks in crypto, and very few of the funds in crypto very few of the hacks in crypto are actually returned back to the protocol. For example, like the Nomad hack, which is like I think $190 million that was lost. There was like over 41 addresses that were hacking it because basically anyone can replay it, and there are only like 6 white hats that were actually rescuing the funds. The reason why is because white hats right now are pretty afraid to actually rescue anything because any damages that are done to the protocol can be the white hats can be found liable for it. So basically, the safe harbor agreement is the solution to that, such that the protocol can just go ahead and just give permission to all white hats in front of time such that if there's any active exploits, then the White Hats can go ahead, rescue funds, and they can be compensated with a little bounty for it as well. And basically just giving legal protection for the White Hats to actually go ahead and rescue funds. And that way we can bring the rescue percentage much higher. And yeah, I think we have some, I guess there's some details at the bottom of the document detailing the exact contracts that are under scope. We've been working with Alicia and Vlad in order to actually get the exact specifications correct. But yeah, like I think that's overall, it's the summary of Safe Harbor proposal.
Great, thanks for sharing. Any questions or comments there?
I just might add as well that, so it's the 10th of December, everything that is required in terms of the parameters for this gap have been finalized. And like Dixon mentioned, a huge shout out to Vlad from ML for helping get lots of that stuff over the line. And so basically, unless any delegates have objections to it going on chain before Christmas, like it would be great if people could maybe comment in the chat. Otherwise, we'll look to Skylock will look to work with the delegate to get this on chain this week. So that's kind of the timeline of things to expect. Cool.
Great. Okay, thanks. So yeah, then Tecker, I would hand over the mic to you to kind of jump into the delegate incentives discussion.
Sure. Happy to. I hope we can get a good discussion today about the delegate incentive. So maybe I can start with a little intro, and then me and Shelby discuss. Maybe we can do like a Slido, right? Where we could pick topics that we can discuss today. It's good also that we see so many people here. I think there's 21 people currently in the call, so it's good we have enough active delegates to maybe share some thoughts. So. Yeah, okay, I see Shelby already posted. So 2 weeks ago, on the November 27, I posted a thread on the forum. It's like an open discussion about delegate incentives. Basically, what it is about is we are discussing, should we pay active delegates in the ZK Nation? And it was, the forum post was actually very well received. I think there were 13 delegates who shared their opinion. And these were not just sign of approvals or comments, but also some concrete ideas or concerns that they have. So yeah, it was very, very good discussion. So if you haven't yet, I encourage everybody to maybe just go through it, read it. There's some very good insights there. The goal of this post was to maybe set some expectations. When we were in DEF CON in Bangkok in Thailand in November, this topic was briefly mentioned by Rafa when he was on the stage during the Governance Day. And the question was how many people, expect that delegates should be paid. And there was quite surprising number of hands that were hand up for that. So you can see that there is, I think, quite a good wish for many delegates to be some kind of an incentive program introduced for the ZK Nation. And also in the last maybe 6 months, so all of you who are familiar with other DAOs or are part of other DAOs, you saw that there's a lot of DAOs are already introducing some incentives or rewards for their delegates or active delegates. But of course, these things are not that simple. There's so many things that need to be we need to be aware of. There's many ways how we can incentivize delegation in ZK Nation. So this was the reason why I wanted to start this discussion, just to maybe start some or to set some expectations for maybe next year where this could be. I also wanted to make it clear that myself, I'm not looking to run this proposal because I'm a standalone individual delegate. So we are also looking for an organization or a team who would be interested to pick up the proposal and run it operationally, because from my experience, there's not only about finding the good system, but also about making sure that we follow on the KPIs, making sure that it's not gamified or played or whatever. So there's also the KYC and the bureaucracy part that needs to be, the regulation part that needs to be done. So all of those things. But I was happy to see that SeedGov, one of the active delegates in ZK Nation, mentioned, they wrote a sentence that they might be interested to run the proposal themselves, but nothing has been set in stone. I think this is still open. Anybody could start working on this proposal. Before we go into the questions, maybe I put together like 5 key discussions that were introduced during the discussion on the forum. So first of all was, should our incentive program be in the shape of monthly stipends, or should they be like a retro rewards, or maybe a mix of both of those? There were also concerns how we can make a system that will not be could not be gained. This is also one of the concerns. There was also an idea about if we have some kind of a tiers or ranks in the system. So this was also, I think, very interesting. One of the feedback was also that maybe at the moment the workload in ZK Nation is not that high and not that big. So maybe we should introduce the incentives later. So this is also maybe up to debate. And also there was a feedback that delegates who are active in multiple DAOs should be treated some kind of a different tier of rewards. So this was also, I found that very interesting as well. So a lot of different views, different ideas, which I really like. But overall, I think there's very positive approach towards this. I think many of us here would like to have some kind of a incentive program. So maybe now we can take it to an idea on a Slido and just see which topics would be worth to discuss. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we kind of do the same thing we did with the call with Alex, where folks can add their kind of top of mind questions or topics they would like to discuss. I know Tecker had highlighted 5 from the discussion. There were many more points as well, or thoughts that were added on the forum. So yeah, folks want to just add them to the Slido, and then people can also vote on which ones they also would like to discuss, and we can kind of prioritize based on that. That's a great point, Christoph. You should add it to the Slido. Or I will do it for you if you would like. Okay, so there's been a few folks who've added some questions. If nothing is coming to mind for you to add yourself, feel free to go and like the existing suggestions so we can kind of get a prioritized list. Okay. Becker, I'm not sure if you wanted to dive into the questions, or if you wanted me to facilitate, up to you.
And we can open the questions, but like I said, I'm let's say, just trying to run the conversation about this. So I don't want to share my thoughts directly, like as a picker, but just as a facilitator here. Yeah. But maybe we can start with Krzysztof, because he opened a very good question, like what will be the responsibilities, or what are the responsibilities of delegates who get paid? Maybe that was the question, right?
Any thoughts?
Maybe Krzysztof, can you expand on the question, what you meant?
Yeah, so I added several more questions in line with this one. And it is a question like, what exactly do we expect delegates to do in ZK Nation? Like, do we expect delegates to work for the ZK Nation, or do we expect them just to make decisions? So are we more of a shareholders of the DAO, or are we more active participants? As in, for example, is research on certain topics something that we would expect delegates to do as a part of the delegate responsibility, which is covered by delegate incentives, or not? Is the oversight over initiatives that we fund expected to be done by delegates, or are we expected to fund someone who will do the oversight and we just make decisions based on the oversight and accountability that this third party is doing? Yeah, so it kind of boils down to that. And I would like to also point out that one of the ways I see and I view the delegate incentives, it is not just a reward for the work that we are doing. It's an enabler that if I'm a top delegate and say I wasn't committing myself to spend 80 hours a month on the DAO work, but if I've got delegate incentives, now I have the means to hire someone to do this work in my account so that I can make more informed decisions. I can suddenly, like, if I am able to hire someone even part-time to do this work, then I can do this research, I can do this oversight, I can handle this accountability myself if I am expected to do so. So one thing that I see lacking in the delegate incentives program in other ecosystems is this lack of expectation of what exactly are we expected to do with for that money, apart from just voting, because like voting itself is just quite simple, but we should be probably active in the discussions. But it's all up to decide. Like we could decide to be more proactive and have bigger incentives which are expected to cover workforce needed for this work provided, or we can decide to be less proactive and rather just make decisions, ratify decisions that are being made by others, and then we should expect that we should fund third parties to do this job. So that's background of my question.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of great points. It's great that this meeting is recorded, right? So when there's going to be an institutional organization who's going to pick up, right, on the proposal, hopefully, right, they could include all of these points. Maybe my point or my opinion here, when I look at delegate incentives, I like to think about maybe the current builders who are maybe building on ZKsync, and when there was an airdrop, right, they managed to get quite a lot of voting power through the the delegation side. There's quite a lot of them in the top 20, top 30, in my opinion. So these are builders who have startups, who have companies, right, and they're spending their time building the product. But now, because they have the voting power, they're already they have a trust by so many people to help run ZKsync and make the right direction for the ZK Nation. And their time is much much valuable. They're not professional delegates or not in the governance, but the incentives maybe should definitely be worth of their time, spending on the DAO and making these decisions and calls.
Yeah, but that also allows them to actually hire someone to, and it's more often than not. Actually, this is the case of L2Beat. Like in L2Beat, the reason why I joined L2Beat is that L2Beat realized that suddenly they became those delegates and they didn't want to handle it themselves, and they were focused on the research and the product that we are doing. So they brought me in so that I can handle governance, and we are extending the team right now so that we can actually commit time to work on those different ecosystems that we are present at. So I think that this delegate incentives, they serve as an enabler. Then this is the direction in which I would be pushing. Like, as if we are paying for delegates to be active delegates, then we should be expecting them that either they commit their own time, or if they can't, which is totally understandable, if they are focused on building their own thing, they are able to hire someone part-time so that they join the calls, join the discussions, and at the end, still those delegates are the ones that are making the decisions and are voting. But now they have the means, they have the tools that allow them to make more informed decisions and to participate in the discussions before the decisions are being made.
Yeah, Rafa?
Christoph, a question for you. So, something that you're kind of mentioning is kind of like how you think about like delegation, and, going back to these to the question about responsibilities, if you were to define like the work, right, the work, which is like the delegate work, what do you think is kind of like the pivotal piece of work that you think is most impactful to kind of like provide value to an ecosystem? And maybe a question is like, based on what you've seen at ZKsync and the direction that we're taking at ZKsync, which is, obviously we're not trying to just do the same thing over and over again. I'm kind of curious from your side, what are those pivotal activities? What's that pivotal work, like the meaningful work that you think is important or will be important for the ZKsync ecosystem?
On the delegates or the work in general? Because
I'm more curious about the delegates, but also maybe it's work in general, but I'm kind of curious about your perspective about the delegates. Like, if you think about what SyncUs is doing and how you're thinking about like, supporting the long-term ecosystem development of ZKsync, like, what's the meaningful work? Because, okay, so where I'm coming from this is like, just posting on the forum, which is something that's often, discussed as like one of the metrics that should be measured. I'm not convinced that's meaningful work, but I'm kind of curious from your side, like, how do you describe meaningful work in this ecosystem? Because if we can articulate that, then maybe we can get somewhere.
So I will divide that, and like I don't have prepared answers, so like I will be thinking out loud right now.
We're just
sorry if it's not structured.
This is not scripted, but we haven't like done any presentation or anything on this. So
so how I see it is that from the delegates' perspective, the like valuable thing that delegates should be providing for like no matter if it's incentivized or not is the time to discuss proposals and ideas that are brought to the ZK Nation, to the DAO. So that whenever, because as I am making the decision, as I am casting the vote, I should make myself available to first understand what the vote is about, to discuss it beforehand, to share my concerns, my views, my arguments for why this particular initiative should be implemented. And then after the decision is being made, to also kind of perform an oversight over this initiative. However, what is not, in my opinion, or at least which should not be included based on the experiences that I have from the other ecosystems, is proper project management. Like usually it's called reporting, but it's not just reporting. It's like proper project management. So let's say that we do fund some initiative. In any corporation, if we fund some initiative, there are like certain expectations of how this initiative is going to be managed. Like each corporation has its own rules, its own standards of what is the expectation, what is the reporting structure, what is the reporting cadence. Like how do we make sure that we help this initiative achieve its goals? Because once we fund it, we should be 100% focused on this initiative succeeding. Or if it's not going well, to end it and throw back the funds, but basically to stop spending funds for things that have no business justification. However, this part, this like project management, in my opinion, it should not be the responsibility of the delegates. It should be a separate role that is either handled by you guys or like we have a third party that is similar like to the delegate in the center, like third party that's actually doing this, maintaining this, like a project management portfolio company that product portfolio management company that usually in companies helps manage initiatives.
So
yeah.
So one of the things that just reflecting back what you're saying, a pattern that this reminds me of is almost like the analysts that go onto the earnings call for a public company, where you're kind of aware of the business state, right? You're asking questions on accountability of execution. You're following through on previous messaging, right? You're reading the earnings report. Like that, it's kind of interesting that I don't know if that's exactly what you were going for, but that's kind of like an initial reaction that I had.
But actually, even probably a lower level. I would even say that it's kind of like a board overseeing the organization being managed properly. So the board that is overseeing execution is being reported to and is able to, provide additional funding or provide additional resources or, facilitate some relationships if needed. The good example in my opinion is the Ignite program, where there is a structure that will be overseeing the program, and there are entities that will be executing on the program, but we will be able as delegates get info from this structure overseeing the program to help the program succeed. And figuring out maybe we should have another protocols joining in. Maybe we should suggest some different direction. That's our role, like providing feedback, because we have broader overview of what's happening across the space, especially with builders. Like builders, they have the first-hand experience and the experience from the front lines of trying to do something in this space. So their view and their opinions on the state of things is very valuable and important in my opinion. But we should have opportunities to do so, like this call.
Okay, great. So I did see another, just to give someone else also a chance to provide some input. I saw 08 had their hand up on this point or another point.
No, it was this point. Yes, hello. Like it was Rafa's question. First it was I know there were so many questions asked, but like the point is that somebody asked Rafa, either Christoph, what the meaningful delegate work entails, and I would reverse engineer that question into like, what does ZKsync want? Because like I know this is something like I asked in the first call or the second call, but like what's the behavior that ZKsync at the moment or in the short term might want delegates to have? That's the question.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a more open question or discussion of like want / versus need, and I think this also will fit maybe nicely into that gap that Rafa and I were mentioning earlier with the prioritization for 2025 for the token assembly. So that's a good question to keep in mind as we open that discussion as well. I think Enos was next. All right, Rafa, I don't know if you wanted to say anything to that point specifically.
No, I think what does ZKsync want? Like you know, part of this goes back to kind of like the priorities that we were discussing that you know, I'm discussing internally in core product development, like securing the protocol and stuff. But something that I will say out loud is, you know, if you think about like quote unquote healthy governance in ZKsync, something that's really important is basically the security and the right to exit of ZK chains, and within that, and ZKsync applications and builders, and within that, you want their voices to be participating in this ecosystem. Something that I do worry about quite often is when you are paying for delegation, it's paying for delegation or monthly stipends often actually is like leads to the wrong people participating in governance. And I'm not 100% sure how to, it's something that I'm just thinking about out loud. There's something interesting about like when you incentivize delegates, like who ends up, who shows up? Like who shows up when you say, I'm going to pay and you know, you're going to get money to vote, right?
Yeah, I guess just to kind of add on that, or just like frame a question of like, if you do decide to design a delegate incentive program, who are the delegates or who are the stakeholders? Maybe it's not even delegates or people who aren't delegates yet. Who are the stakeholders that you're trying to incentivize to participate, or who you really want to be participating in the system? Ines, I believe you were next.
Rafa, maybe just on your question, I think that's the matter of defining how this would work, right? If you have tiers, you would have in the tiers some trust level, whatever, right? More brains we can put together and combine something that makes sense on how to approve the delegates that would actually get part of the incentive. I think that question is not hard to answer. It's rather on how do we make sure that we make the right tiers and we make the zero decision, right? The starting point decision in that sense. Someone mentioned what does ZKsync want from us. Maybe I'm understanding the whole thing wrong, but I don't think so that this is about ZKsync. I think throughout all these meetings, the responsibility that I see that's what your guys are trying to do is to put the responsibility on us and actually decentralize ZKsync. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with ZKsync. It's not decentralized. It's still run by ZKsync, and that was not the point of the whole foundation thing and the organization that ZKsync has at this point. I didn't post anything on the forum yet, but I did draft kind of some of the questions, and I just want to pinpoint one thing that to me is also the biggest question. I don't know who asked this, but what will be the responsibilities? I think first and foremost, we have responsibility to have active participation. Does it that makes that we need to be included in decision-making processes, we need to be included in the voting, we need to be actively participating on the discussions and stuff. This is all the matter of KPIs, like how do we set up the KPIs, who is active, how is active, anything that's measurable, basically in a sense of being active, having active participation in the DAO. Another thing, I think that we have to be spokesmen for ZKsync. At this point, this does not exist. Like if you ask a lot of people in the ecosystem, who do we talk to? We are building on ZKsync for about 3 years. We talk to the partners that we know for a longer time, that we trust, that we already work with them, etc. But to whom do other people go that are not that long in the ecosystem, that do not have this support system or trust system, however we call it, right? So I think that could be one of the roles of actually delegates, that anyone can go to the delegates and discuss and talk and ask the questions, whatever. Another thing is transparency and accountability, like maintaining open communication with the community. I think that's the most important. At this point, it does not exist. Most of the people do not understand what's happening with Ignite program, with whatever proposals are out there, and everyone needs some clarification. Look at how many of us is now on the calling here and how many delegates actually exist. That's a problem. At least to me, that's kind of a problem. I see it as a problem. And another thing that I see as a problem is that community engagement, overall community engagement. Is it, I don't know, Discord, or is it Twitter, or whatever it is out there? there is no really active community engagement. And I'm not talking just about voting and stuff that we propose, but that we also like kind of advise on people what they can do, what they cannot do. Like I know that recently, stupid example, recently there was this update that we can have SSO now on ZKsync. People didn't know this, even though it's on ZKsync Twitter. People didn't know. So we had a client that was asking, like, what do we do? Then these are the things that we as representatives, as delegates, should go and say, hey, this is an update, this exists, you can find the information here. Like really be the one, the contact that kind of gives them an entry, easy entry towards ZKsync ecosystem. Make it easier for the rest to join the ecosystem. So these are my 2 minutes thoughts, 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Ines. I think this point, or you possibly may have brought up this point in the past, and I think it's also something that we've discussed on these calls before, of like how to make it easier for folks, for delegates to understand what's going on in the ecosystem and how to connect to the ecosystem. I think that actually might be a separate discussion, which I would love to continue, and we should definitely continue, because I agree with you that there are definitely still a lot of gaps missing between the kind of like development of ZKsync protocol and everything else that's going on within the ecosystem. We've identified a few places where folks can kind of stay up to date, but I think that could be improved. In regards to Ignite, I did want to just add that the team actually does have a thread, like a whole like folder on the forum for all the updates that they post. But yeah, I think that's a good discussion to continue, Ines, and we should touch base after this to maybe figure out how to do that going forward. But to maybe refocus the discussion on delegate incentives, I know Joe posted something in the chat, and I think you were also next with your hand up, Joe, if you wanted to hop on.
Yeah, happy to provide more color on the comment. So just reflecting on my take on the essential delegate activity, fundamentally it has to be voting on proposals in an informed way. Like that is critical to what we're doing here. But I think probably the most valuable activity right now is designing meaningful programs that actually move the needle in the ecosystem. And it feels like that's what's currently not being incentivized, and I would like to see, or not being encouraged, because that's what will be game changing. And I think it's quite important to separate separate the fact that delegates can vote on proposals, and those delegates can similarly author proposals, but the author of those proposals can be anyone. And I'd probably split out the reward and incentive frameworks for voting versus authoring proposals into different tracks to really encourage people to come forward with great ideas that are going to change how things are done and move the ecosystem forward. I think Christoph's point on enabling the success of programs is also really interesting. It's really hard to quantify that, but I would probably again split that as another thing to be incentivized. And I think the more we can silo the core responsibility as of delegates and design incentive programs that support them and other ecosystem participants in doing that, the easier things will be. Otherwise, it all gets super convoluted and messy. And I also agree with the point around the need for there to be some layer bringing reporting and accountability, because I think we've seen from other ecosystems that having 40 delegates go, not that deep at all is way less valuable than having one person or one team going really deep, playing back their findings to get delegates and allowing them to make a final informed opinion. That's my 2 cents.
Thanks for sharing, Joe. Any questions, reactions to that? Otherwise, Cap also had his hand up as well.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly had my hand for a very long time, and so many people commented on this. I don't even remember what I wanted to say, because I had so many thoughts on just people and their comments. I guess now I'm kind of interested in the commenting on the ecosystem side, but I'll try to keep it short. long story short, we're working on something, and in the next few weeks, you'll hopefully see it, and that will hopefully just once and for all figure this out when it comes to ecosystem problems and everything in that with that regard. Right now, I think there is a everything kind of trickles down towards like this call and meta governance call, and like it happens every 2 weeks, and it's simply not enough to establish the foundational principles on which everything will function. So I think we have to address that first. Second thing I just want to encourage people to do, and like I love and I enjoy these conversations and everything, but let's just move all of these to the discussion forum, and let's have very well informed, and like let's just spam each other on the discussion forum, and everyone shares their opinion. So when we come here, we have like some specific problems that we already agree on, and we can come up with solutions. Right now, all I hear is like, and it's great, like we share opinions and like all of that, like we just agree with everything, right? Like everything that people shared, I agree with. So like let's take it the next step. Let's on these calls work on what we do about the things that we agree on. So I just want to encourage participation. Everyone talks about participation, but like let's just go and participate. Let's go to the discussion forum and actually take time aside like every day for like 30 minutes to post comments and your thoughts and everything. And it will be definitely a lot better. Another thing I just wanted to say when it comes to delegates and their responsibilities and stuff like that, I think it just comes down to meaningful contribution, and actually being able to make an informed decision, right? And for that actually to happen, like being a delegate I sort of see it as a lifestyle, in a sense that it requires like just constantly reading and learning and like staying informed and staying on top of new things and everything. So this simultaneously applies to technology, it applies to governance, it applies to ecosystem building, it applies to figuring out how to do grants and what are the best practices for all of that. So yeah, being delegate is seemingly easy thing to do. You just go on discussion forums and make comments, but actually having like meaningful contribution and making informed decisions is something that is extremely valuable. And it we shouldn't surround ourselves with just people who like type ChatGPT replies and responses and all that. So yeah, that which brings me maybe to my next point is like I think the reward should be a combination of maybe automated on-chain TPP proposal in terms of like evaluating on-chain stats, like number of votes placed on each proposal and stuff like that. So that can be automated. And then the second thing is like more the social side, but which can be automated in a sense that we track the activity on this discussion forum, but not ChatGPT activity, but actually meaningful contributions. And meaningful contributions can be maybe we can have like a small governing body like that can every now and then like reevaluate who contributes well and who like it's kind of obvious to kind of notice all of the comments that are kind of ChatGPT comments. So that's my few minutes.
Great. Any comments or reactions to that? We are coming up on the end of our time.
Maybe I can do like a little roundup since I started the whole conversation and debate. So I think, yeah, a lot of great questions were put out, not only about the incentive program, but overall about ZK Nation governance, right? I think, yeah, the 2025 strategic docs that you're preparing, this will definitely help with the whole movement forward. I personally expect that there will be some kind of a proposal put up about incentives in the next year, right? Myself, I will try to reach out to the SeedGov team because they have experience running a delegate incentive program in other DAOs, and they've been doing it for many versions already. So a lot of the questions or concerns that were brought up, I think could be answered by them. So I will ask around, see if they're interested to move this forward, and I will highly encourage them to do it, of course, through the forum, because I think I agree with Cap. The best conversations and debates should happen on forum, because then anybody who maybe joins later or needs to follow up on what's happening can go to that one place instead of going through recordings like this one, etc. Right? So yeah, I will do that, and I would like to also encourage anybody who hasn't shared their opinion on the forum yet. Yeah, please do that. There is the link in the chat here, or just go to the forum, find the thread. It's called Delegate Incentives. just write your opinion. Yeah, it's very, very valuable. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tucker. Yeah, it seems that there are still a lot of very high level questions, or kind of common themes that could be identified in the discussion on the forum, and also in the discussion, new things that came up today. So yeah, that it's a big, complex discussion topic. So, but yeah, so kind of also next steps, just on my end, I will, in the call notes, I'll share this collection of all the questions that were shared on the Slido today. Some of them might be repeats of what's already on the forum, but just so there's like a record of it, I'll be sure to like include that in the call notes so folks have access to that. And I know there were a few that were discussed and also added to the chat, and I'll try to like pick those out as well to add those so they're all in one place. But yeah, with that, we are coming up on our final minute here. So thank you, everyone, for joining and for participating in the discussion today. Just quick reminders again from the beginning of the call, if you want to drop any comments or feedback on the proposal review call idea, post, that would be great. And we can find a way to set something like that up. Also with, again, calling out ZIP 3 resubmission, the voting for that will be starting next week. And ZIP 2 voting will be closing tomorrow, but will be resubmitted again as well this week, just an FYI. And for the safe harbor will be submitted on chain this week. Won't start voting until next week. But yeah, those were kind of the main shout out reminders from the beginning of the call. Thank you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will see you in 2 weeks, maybe next week, if you guys want to do the proposal review call already next week, but latest 2 weeks. Bye, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.